participants here. Hey, everyone. Give everyone a minute to pile in here. I'll be here for the first part, and then my associate, Brendan, will be taking over for the second half. All right, let's go here. So from John, what kind of permission I must have in order to execute the REST API workflow? You need to have permissions to be able to execute the flow itself. In our world, if you had a flow, I'll go back to Lunch and Learn 1 here. If you have this flow is web service. I need to be able to call this. I need to have permissions to, I need to have at minimum can use permissions to the folder this flow lives in. So right now, this flow as a web service lives in this folder LNL1. If I right click and go to manage permissions, I can see the folder permission, and I can either put a user or group of users. So let's assume I'm going to give everyone the ability to run this, no matter what group, I'm going to use my most basic group. Come down to groups information, add new, pick my all users group, can use, and save permissions. Now anyone will be able to run this flow because everyone has can use permissions. So you have to put to have the ability to call a flow as an API is no different than calling it any other way. You just need to make sure that the user or the group of users has permissions on the parent folder of the flow.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Chris, about calculated fields on a report. Flow-Inline-Field can be very slow. Yes, it can be. What about Merge-Text-Inline-Field? Is this much faster than the former or similar performance? Let's see here. So let's make a report of accounts. And then we'll add a calculated field here. So the calculated field you're asking about is Merge-Text-Inline-Field, Merge-Text-Inline.
Which you might use to build a name, for example, right?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Or to put the name elements together.
Mm-hmm. So I don't have performance data for you here, but I would assume that this is much faster than the Flow-Inline-Field. And the reason I'm going to assume that is it doesn't have to initiate a workflow engine for each cell of each row where there is a Flow-Inline-Field. But admittedly, I don't know how performant these are, as they're not commonly used. Go ahead.
Well, and I guess, I mean, that was sort of the first thing is it's good to know that, one shortcut is that we've eliminated the whole start up a workflow engine flow thing per row on the report, right? I guess the other question mark becomes, which is one of these things that we're, in terms of what hazards are we getting into, is that I'm going to end up with this computed value. And as you say, because there's a much less overhead, it ought to go faster. But now I'm looking at, I think I have a designer a developer who is happy to put this on what would be, potentially a very long report. And then I have a user who might want to use the search function maybe to search for that, like a name that, that result then. And I sort of scratch my head and wonder, well, that means it's going to have that computer result for the entire data set in order to actually, do the search my report trick, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now that means everything has to be in memory somewhere and computed, which then brings me back to the question of what kind of, is admittedly, I don't have the overhead of the Flow-Inline-Field, but now am I still incurring a significant overhead that I need to be mindful of?
Mm. Yeah, I would say these are, I'd like to actually have some data to say, but these are, should be fine to use. Yeah, I don't know without actual data to say what the performance impact is. I'm hesitant to say how performant they might be with large scale reporting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, and that's sort of also a general problem that I think is emerging in my little world where, my first problem is to actually retire the Flow-Inline fields. That's sort of the first thing I'm
or at least
working on.
cache them, possibly. You could look at caching, but definitely if you can, the way I think about this, Chris, is I never use those now because I've seen them fall over once they get enough data in. So ideally, what I would say is if you can do all that work in SQL, turn that SQL work into a view, and then write your report, then create an integration against the view and make your report against the view. Once we have that in place, you'll be using the most efficient fetching pattern from a performance standpoint, because you'll actually be doing real paging and filtering and not returning the whole data set into memory and or incurring the cost of this per cell per row piece we talked about.
Yeah, one thing I'm beginning to do, which I find myself saying, I don't know that this is a great idea, but I don't know, but it looks like it solves a lot of problems for me, is that so I have what I call my work item record, which is the base record that, is the start of everything interesting. But then in reports, we need to link to other things, for example, or we have these, like, for example, these merge results. And I find myself beginning to actually build a database query, database view, which is essentially nothing more than a simple select starting with the base table and spreading out to all the other interesting bits. But then going back to decisions and telling decisions, hey, I want to tell you that you are linked to this other thing, and this other thing happens to be that view. And then when I go to make this report, I just generally just have the base work item table and then entity basically, and then the link to view. And then I put together what looks like a fairly rich report, but actually the heavy lifting is over in the SQL engine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the best place. Like you want to make sure you want to let SQL do what it's best at. And I think getting away from anything, there's just different, like the flow engine and the report engine are different enough that you don't want the flow engine itself isn't the best place to do like reporting. And so flow reporting data sources that call SQL queries are much less performant than just turning that SQL query to a view and then writing your data source against the view directly. One of the main reasons we've seen customers need to do that is to access current user. And in current versions, we've added in like a custom string property that allows you to access current user. I think it's there's like a is current user field now.
Yeah, I think it's SQL. I think it's the SQL-based ones or something like that.
SQL-based filters. Yeah, current user filter. Wonderful. Yeah, and so I could check the email address. This is a helpful new addition to our report designing toolbox here. Yeah.
Yes, I remember this one. You say that calling calling a query to put out a report is less than shall we say less than ideal compared to doing a view?
Say that one more time.
So I thought I heard you say that defining a view that then is the input to a report is better than having the report call a query.
Yeah, correct. A view, yeah. The view-based is going to be is as efficient as any other data source type or report design as we have. Yep. And that's we oftentimes see this where with some customers, they'll start off with a flow reporting data source, and then they'll move, which is completely flow step based, and they'll move to a SQL query running in flow reporting data source. Then they'll move to a view. And we've added like this new current user filter piece to make it a little easier, but eventually they might need to move to a completely custom reporting data source, like actually write an SDK extension, given the particular reporting needs that they have. That's kind of the journey to ultimate performance reporting or something that we see.
So tell me, that what catches my attention is I know I have one tricky report that is going through a flow source. And you're warning me that that is hazardous compared to that. If going with a flow source, I might find myself wanting to replace that with a view before long.
Yeah, if possible. Yep, absolutely.
I would not have guessed that.
They don't handle large data sets gracefully.
And by large data set, are we talking about on the order of 1,000 rows? Or?
Yeah, getting up to even thousands makes it will work, but it won't be an ideal experience for your end users. So if we can not use those, we should not use those.
Okay, and if we are using them, we want to see a volume of row results of less than 1,000.
Yeah, I would say like maybe in low hundreds or something like that is probably reasonable.
Okay. All right.
It all depends on the flow, but like one of the things is you have to think like a filter applied to a flow reporting data source flow filters the fetched data already. It doesn't filter on the fetch. So like just in terms of the sequence of events. So any filters you apply to that report data source, the flow is going to run everything in, fetch it, and then filter it down once it receives it. Whereas like a normal reporting data source filters on the fetch. So it only returns you back what you've requested. And so that difference alone can cause some significant performance issues in production.
Well, I think in the example that I'm thinking about where we're using a flow source report, I don't believe we have any other filters in play on the report side. And I think we've even gone to the extent of removing the header level filters that you can do. by default in a report viewer.
Yeah, so that might sort of obviate my concern there, but just a general note, which is if we cannot use those, our best practice would be to not use them. They exist as a tool, but they oftentimes don't become problematic until we put production level data sets onto them, in which point we oftentimes incur support traffic relating to those specifically. So
now
that's really the sum total of it.
I'm familiar, so I did see that for a data source, having an entity linked to a view is reasonably straightforward. Is it possible to have a data source that is directly to a view?
Data source, yeah. Yeah, if you create a data, you can create an integration, like using your local connection folder, create an integration to the view. And once you do that, you'll get a data source to access the view directly.
Oh, okay, because I thought that just created steps that you could use for.
It'll do both. Like a table integration or a view give you a data source and steps as well. So you'll have a I don't have any to point at, but if you see here, create a data type, database integration, add table. I don't have any views, but
well, you could cheat and use one of the decisions built-in views, right?
I don't think we ship with any views. I could be wrong about that, but
I thought you did.
I know we ship with lots of stored procedures.
So I am pretty sure there are a bunch of VW kinds of things hiding in the base database.
What do we? Let's see. Add a view, local connection. Oh, there you go. Get folder permissions. Everything, yep. And then if we come and create a report, it should be common local connection, get folder permissions. This will be our view. And so this thing will give you all of the fetching and filtering that you want from efficiently that you want.
Curious. We'll have to revisit that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to help. Alex, did you have a question about this? You have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm kind of lost in all this, but I do have a report that has a flow column, and I have that because I'm under the impression that from the data sources point of view, I can only have like 2 data sources connecting to each other. Is that like I'm on 6.16, is that like a 6.16 limitation? Has that been addressed going forward, or?
You're only restricted to that if you're using our relationship sort of editor in the report designer in terms of what it gives you access to. But you can always go around our limited set of report data sources and write SQL and then integrate with SQL, which is what Chris and I have been referring to here. So there's no limit to the complexity of a SQL query or a SQL or what we've been talking about here, a view that we can integrate with.
So basically, I can attach to the local database and create views on decisions objects and then basically pull them up as data sources in reports.
Absolutely. In fact, that would be the most performant pattern to use. Yep.
Oh, okay, great.
And the flow-inline fields will don't handle large data that gracefully. They've got a bit of overhead that only shows up in large data sets. So.
Great.
Yeah, that's one of my most favorite and least favorite topics to talk about. Usually I only give that information to customers after they've already deployed to prod and are very upset with me. So I'm glad to talk about that much earlier in the development lifecycle, because it is it's very easy it's one of the reasons where, you know, we have a couple catchphrases we're working on, like no code doesn't mean no training. But now we also think about no code doesn't mean no testing or no load testing. And so it's important to attack your projects with as much real world data as possible so we can catch these kind of things, because It can be very fast with a handful, but very slow with a few thousand. So just making sure we're thinking about that as part of our code promotion process.
Right.
Okay, Jimmy, on a customized case page, we want a state timeline page component at the top, but how do you feed the current state of that folder to the component? Now, if you're talking about like those should, let me create a page. Those should inherit the context of the report or of the folder automatically. So here we're on this page. Let's see if I can do this really quick. Folder timeline. I have 9 minutes. Is Brendan joined? Sabrina, can we confirm again that Brendan will be here? Because if not, I'll have to end this for all of our friends here.
Yep, I'm messaging him now.
All right, set up process folder. And expected states of flow. We'll say state 1, 2, 3. Let's put an assigned form in here. And a set state step. State 1. Get this working. Okay. So run this flow. It gives me a process folder, not complete my form. Now this doesn't have a state timeline on it, unless of course it doesn't. So let's go edit our default process view page. So what I'm going to do is delete the stuff on the top here. And I'm going to search for, I think, timeline. Is it state timeline? Now this should inherit the state of the folder automatically. You shouldn't have to pass it in, Jimmy. It should just get that for you automatically. Let's see. If I come back, yeah. So started state 1, that probably looks like a problem. State 2, state 3. So it got this list of expected states from the expected state list, which should correspond, if you're using a case, to the expected states in the configuration folder of that case, I believe.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But yeah, certain things in our world are magic, and this is one of the magic ones. It knows the folder it's a part of, and then it renders itself based on the context of the folder it's being presented on. So
Cool.
Whereas if I put this on a regular folder, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't have a state, or it wouldn't be able to show anything. So it just happens kind of automatically on our behalf.
Okay. And that works the same on a case entity versus the process.
It should, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's my understanding. And then
Cool.
instead of here, where on that flow I just built, where I did expected states on as a string list into the setup process folder, you should have expected states in the configuration folder for your case. So if I come here and create this thing, this case has started and completed. So these would be expected states.
Yes.
And so these should show up in the same way on that timeline for you. So so the actual state would control what the highlighted dot is, and the dots themselves should be controlled by these expected states in the configuration folder.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Wow, okay, that makes sense, Alex, if I put in a incorrectly typed state name for getting that duplicate state piece. All right, what other questions do we have for, I think, Brendan, I'll just pass this to you probably now. Anyone else have any other questions that we can toss to Brendan and ask him to, I'll go ahead and stop my share and Brendan, let you get set up here.
I'm sharing studio, right?
Yep.
Perfect. Got a question from Alex. Can you show me again what you did to change the page that shows the process? So Will had to jump, so I'm covering for him here. So I don't have background on exactly what we were going over before he left. Change the page that shows the process.
Brendan, Will was just showing how you can apply different timelines to different custom process view pages for it to automatically show like the states and the configurations within that custom process view page. So I think Alex is just looking for a walkthrough on how to custom change the process view page to add like a folder timeline or something like that.
To modify the default process view in a here. So it looked like we were going over cases.
Yeah, it's just for that type for the case entity.
Right. Let me see if I remember. I know we had to do it with flow execution extension data. It's probably pretty similar. So sorry, it was, I think, I might not know where that is for a case. I know where it is for normal process folders. Let me see if this is something here. No, it's not quite the same. Yeah, that might be best. I don't want to hold it up too much since I'm not finding it. Or maybe I'm just still missing some of the context on what was demonstrated. But yeah, if that's easy enough for you to roll back the recording and find that, then maybe we'll consider that one answered for now. Oh, this might be it. Okay, another question in the chat. By the way, I think this might be Yeah, this is what I was, right. So if you go to the config, the configuration folder for the case structure, and you open that, then we can create a page. I believe, I don't know if there's a way to do it state by state, but I believe you can add the page through one of these actions here. So your subsequent question was showing the process on a page that you design instead of the default, right? So I think we can do that from here. Let's see. So we'll just say case page test. And we'll just find something arbitrary. I know I've got probably some random report I can actually, we'll create a new report real quick. I'll just report on the account data source. That's easy enough to do. Let me get this panel out of my way. There we go. So I made a report so that we can generate some mock data on this page. Jimmy, to your question, it is only for that particular process, or rather it's specific to this case. So my understanding, at least for case entities, which admittedly I know a little bit more about flow execution extension pages. I haven't messed with cases a whole lot, but I believe this is global to the case structure. If that answers your question.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure I wasn't going to be editing other default pages when I customize that one.
Yeah, those will all be default still, unless you modify those as well. Right, so we've got our page here. Let me make sure I actually added it. There we go. I've added my page to the case. And then now, let me just generate a case real quick. Just going to fill in a bunch of mock data. Sure. Property, why not? Don't really need a description. We'll give it a name, case object test, and it'll be in our current little test folder here, my apps.
Yeah.
Right, so I used that flow to generate one of our case objects. And now when I click into it, you can see that the default page has changed. We still have access to the original case view, or the default, but we also have this now will get navigated to automatically upon drilling into one of our case objects. Yeah, absolutely. I think it might also respect the folder timeline. Let me see if I can find that thing. Yeah, or the folder activity panel. Oh no, I haven't played with this component with case objects as much, but any other of our attendees, please feel free to throw in another question. I'm just doing this for my own curiosity while I wait for additional questions to come in. Jimmy is asking if you wanted the state to be set to something next to the dots, would you edit the CSS or would it be a different page component? So Jimmy, next to which dots? Are you referring to this right here?
So on that custom page, the different states that we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So on one of your videos on YouTube, it's got the Agile company, and instead of the dots started, requested, submitted, it's got like a bar across with like arrows. It's got apply, review, underwriter. I was kind of wondering what was used to get those different states there versus the default timeline.
So these states here are being rendered differently.
Well, it's not that it's a page component. It's a timeline tile.
Interesting. If you have the video, or maybe you could send me the link. I'm not sure what that looks like exactly. In the Zoom chat. We definitely can, I mean, as far as CSS goes, we can definitely use CSS. All right, let me pull this up here.
Yeah, I think it's about 42 seconds in.
Let's see what you're referring to. Oh, I gotta love ads. 42 seconds in. Create dashboards that are actionable, live, and customized in V7.
So that's at the top.
Oh, this right here?
Yep.
I don't know if that's a static image, or we may, because I don't recognize that component offhand. I'm wondering if that's a static image or not. And maybe I'm honestly, I haven't seen that. I bet that it's possible that that is a static image. Everything else looked like a normal tile, except for that one piece. I don't recognize that. Let me see if I can. Like, maybe there's something new here that I'm not familiar with. Ooh, state timeline. Oh, is that
Yeah,
it?
state timeline just gives you the dots.
Oh. Yeah, I've never seen this before. Folder data state line. And it's nothing. The dots aren't accompanied by anything dynamic. It's just it just has the total amount of states.
Yes.
Gotcha. It seems almost like, so this is a single piece of data. Maybe that was CSS. I might be able to find who put that together. Let me see if I can see if anybody knows a little bit more about this.
Yeah, that'd be nice. We like that.
Yeah, let me see if I can just screen cap this again. No, that's not what I wanted. And see if some of our salespeople might know what wizardry was done to get that to look that way.
Another thing it could be is it could be a diagram tile. You can customize your look for your diagram tiles, and maybe it might have been that. But that's the only other thing I could think of.
Yeah, let's see. Sorry, I gotta block the screen a little bit here for a moment. thinking it might be that folder data state line. Okay, well, I threw it out there. We'll see if somebody knows. If not, we might want to open that up as just a support inquiry. We can probably get that turned around to you quickly because somebody built that project internally, so we definitely have it. I just don't know who built it offhand, and then we could probably get you an answer to that question pretty easily.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, but if we get an answer here right now, I'll let you know. Okay, so yeah, we can mark that one as answered for now. That must be new to 7 or something, or maybe not. Maybe just, like I said, I don't work with case objects a whole lot. Looks like Tim might know what it is here. One of our sales engineers is thinking it might be a standard form control, or not a standard form control, rather. It might be something custom actually that we put together. I'm waiting on confirmation, but it seems like that's the case. So we must have put together custom code for that demo. But he's confirming with the other person who I think put that demo together. No. It is actually, I was correct. It is actually CSS on the state timeline component. So they must have overlaid they must have taken in each state statically in their CSS, basically. That's actually pretty impressive.
Is there a way I could get someone to show us how they did it? If I just put take it in for that, or?
Let me see. Maybe I can. That might be the easiest way for me to for us to get the information over to you. If you want to call out that demo, or actually even call out my name specifically, because I don't know. Maybe I might even be able to just get you the CSS example directly. But let me see if we can get that CSS over to you. Oh, thanks, Jared, for getting ahead of me and asking for that. Yeah, so I think that's probably the best way to go about it. If you submit a support ticket and just call out that demo and call me out by name, then we can probably get something over to you.
Would that work on pretty much anything we see on your YouTube channel that we like that emulate? Just put a support ticket in there and tell you where we saw it and how to get it.
Yeah, I mean, because it's kind of our catch-all. If there's no other direct avenue or support, line of inquiry, the support is going to be the place to do it. So yeah, just drop the video in and ask if it's something that we can, send over to you.
Cool. Too easy. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Murray is saying that you have something similar in your dev environment that you can point us to if that would help. That we can't really share screens in Lunch and Learns, unfortunately, but that is interesting. It seems like we might already have what we're looking for, but thanks, Murray. I'm curious, is that something on what exactly you guys are working with?
Sorry. We had a POC built. I thought I was unmuted already. I've been talking back to you. You didn't.
Of
we
course.
had a POC built a couple years ago that uses the Chevron timeline for states. And it's in our dev environment, which is hosted at Decisions. So if you would like me to point you to it so you can see how it works after this call, I know I can't share it on the call, then I can do that.
Oh, okay.
That's all I was saying.
Yeah.
I already have it. I know where there's working code for this because we have it.
Okay. And you guys use cases, right? I think.
Yes, that's correct.
Right. Okay. Perfect. That's interesting. Let me see if they already. I want to see how far along they are in delivering that, and then that could be helpful. So it turns out that it was not CSS. It's still something that is configurable and that we can export. It looks like a flow run part with an HTML display. Interesting. So I think we can still probably end up delivering it to you, Jimmy. So Murray, thank you. If we get really stuck, I think we might even reach out to you.
Okay.
Definitely appreciate it. Thank you, Murray.
Okay.
And actually, while I'm asking, do you happen to know if you guys are using CSS, or do you know the underlying how it's working in the back end, or offhand?
No, because we said we want this, and someone went off and magically built it.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know how it
So
works.
I'm willing to bet it's something pretty similar. So yeah, okay. So I think we can probably just pull it from our end. Okay, gotcha. So in this case, just what it sounds like they were using, which again, we can go ahead and if you just reach out to us, we can probably send it over to you. But it is basically it's still on the page. It's dynamic. It's configurable. But the way they're doing it is they have a flow run part on that page, which I don't know if you've worked with those before, but it's basically just on a page. It allows you to effectively render forms. Normally, you're using other page components, but a flow run part pretty much allows you to actually take any normal form you have and render it on a page or a dashboard. And in this case, what they're doing is they're taking that form and they're adding an HTML display to it. And that's giving them a lot of freedom to pass data into the HTML display to allow for the dynamic states. That is the gist of it. But like I said, we can send something over to you if you reach out. All right, looks like our attendees are starting to thin out now. I'll leave it open for a couple more minutes if you guys have any other questions right now. And then I think we might be able to just end this a few minutes early. But we'll leave the floor open for a couple more minutes and just in case. All right, looks like we can end it here. Thanks for everybody who joined. We hope you find this helpful, and we hope to see you come back for our next round of Lunch and Learns. Thanks, everybody.